This is Des, and you are listening to The Wellness Project, powered by Spotlight Coalition. I have some very exciting news to share. For the first time ever, I am offering a group program. I realize that many people are stressed, burned out, overwhelmed, and just plain exhausted. Sadly, many people don't have support from others, a healthy outlet, or a way to cope with the stresses of their everyday lives. If you can relate, then don't hesitate to sign up for the Mindful Monday Power Up group. This 4-week group will not only give you the support and encouragement you've been craving, but it will also provide you with a safe space to express yourself, healthy coping skills, practical tips you can implement into your daily life, and that sense of community you've been longing for. Create a life you love. Sign up for the waitlist today. You can find the link in the show notes, and I can't wait to see you there. I'm really looking forward to you hearing my interview today. I am speaking with Kellina Powell. Kellina went deaf at the age of 4, and now she dedicates her life to being an advocate for the deaf community, educating hearing people, and she is a mental health coach. So she talks all things mental health and wellness. I'm so excited to bring Kellina on today because I think we could all use a little more education when it comes to the deaf community. And being an advocate and a deaf person herself, she is the perfect person to speak to. And I do also want to point out that as a hearing person and just how we take things for granted and how inaccessible some things can be, I was trying to figure out how to put captions on my Zoom meeting. I record the interviews in Zoom and then download the audio. Even though my interviews are audio only, the guest and I can see each other. I could not for the life of me figure out how to put captions on my Zoom meeting. I even Googled how to put captions on Zoom meetings, and it took me through the process. Still, it wouldn't work. Then another article said, oh, download this program and connect it to Zoom. I couldn't figure out how to do that. I was messing around in the settings. I saw the captions section. I was clicking all different things in there. Nothing was working. So just another point that me being a hearing person, I was actively trying to figure out how to put captions in Zoom, and I could not figure it out. It was really difficult. I was having a really hard time. It just wasn't easily accessible. And that's something that I take for granted because I don't need the captions, but other people do. So to make it inaccessible, to make it difficult, to make it hard to figure out, that's another disservice to the deaf communities. So that was just another point I wanted to bring up going into this interview, is that even going into an interview with someone from the deaf community, we had another obstacle and something that was very challenging that I feel shouldn't have been that challenging. I mean, I'm no tech person, but I feel it should literally just be a captions on, caption off button, like on YouTube or Netflix or something. So anyway, that was just my little example, my little rant of what I experienced. So let's speak with Kellina. I'm really looking forward to you hearing this interview. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. Let's welcome Kellina. Everyone, I am so excited to welcome Kellina Powell to the show. Kellina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm so excited to speak with you. So for our listeners, can you give us an introduction to who you are, the kind of stuff you've been through, and how you got to where you are today?
Definitely. So hello, everybody. My name is Kellina. I am a young entrepreneur. So I am so many things. So first thing is I'm a mental health coach for young professionals. I help them to overcome self-esteem, anxiety, and depression. I am a deaf advocacy. I am a deaf person, which is very interesting. People be like, what? Kellina deaf? Yes, I am. I am an international speaker, so I speak on so many things like mental health and disability, inclusivity, dating, relationship. And I am also an upcoming author, which I'm super excited about that. I'm a YouTuber, so I'm trying to keep up with YouTube. I'm trying. YouTube really hard sometimes, to be honest. I think that's pretty much it about me. You know, I've been through a lot of roller coaster in life just because I became deaf at the age of 4. So that was definitely a turning point for me.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And I didn't know that you were a YouTuber also. I'll have to check out your channel.
Thank you.
YouTube is tough. I used to do YouTube and I stepped away and now I just do the podcasting. So it is tough. That's awesome though. So I want to go back to, you said that You became deaf when you were 4. Can you speak a little more to that? Do you remember being able to hear fully? And was this something genetic? Was it an accident? Can you go into that a little bit?
Definitely. So it's such a crazy story, to be honest, because not everybody would think of this story. So I became deaf at the age of 4. It's all due to an infection that I had. So my doctor prescribed me like an ear drop, told my mom's infection. So I went to a daycare, and my daycare did not follow instruction for the ear drop. So that one day that I went to daycare with the ear drop, I went home deaf in that one day. So my mom literally picked me up from daycare. I was watching TV. The TV was nice and loud, so I couldn't really tell I was deaf until my mom started calling me, and she's like, "Kellina, hello, Kellina." And I'm like, and she thought I was playing around, a 4 year old, 4 year old, they just like to play around. So my mom literally tapped on my shoulder. I literally jump. When I tell you I jump, I jump. And I was like, what? And the mom said, "Do you not hear me calling you?" I'm like, "No." What? And I was so confused for that second. I'm like, wait, I just realized I can't hear my mom. And she was just like trying to talk to me. And I was like, okay, I cannot hear this woman. And I was looking so like, mom said, hello. Like she was trying to get my attention. And I said, "Mom, I can't hear you." And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "No." And she called my grandma. My grandma, thankfully, was a nurse. So my grandma just kind of like trying to talk to me on the phone, trying to figure out what was going on. I couldn't hear the phone either. And that would even tragedy for my mom because she's like, "Oh my God, okay, this is not happening." And my grandma rushed from the hospital to sit down with me, trying to figure out what's going on. The bad news, I couldn't hear my grandma. My grandma did a little bit of texting with me, couldn't hear her. So we and my grandma took it, Kellina's not joking. So then we called my family doctor to book an appointment the next day. The next day, we went to my family doctor. He's like, "Okay, this is crazy. Kellina is literally deaf. There's nothing you can do. It's too late." All because of the daycare.
Wow, that really is a crazy story. Now, do you remember anything from that? I mean, were you scared? Were you not understanding what was going on? I mean, I can't imagine how scared your mom must have been.
My mom was really terrified. She was a young mom too, so that's even worse. So she didn't even know, like, huh? I was very scared. I was literally deaf for like 2 days, I remember. And I couldn't hear anything for 2 days. I was terrified. I was confused. I didn't even know what was going on because I'm like, how come I can't hear, and especially because we lived in a house at the time, like a big house. And so I couldn't hear anything. And I was walking around confused. I think I was trying to bang something to see like if I could hear it, and I couldn't hear it. And I was so confused. I was lost.
Wow. And I mean, that would be scary for anyone, but for a little 4-year-old girl, I mean, that's so scary. And did you gain some of your hearing back?
No, I did not. My hearing just literally at the bottom of the audiogram when my family doctor checked my hearing.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you completely lost your hearing.
Yeah.
What was that like after that point? Was there anything that your mom, I mean, did she seek out hearing aids or anything like that? Were there any services in school or anything that you were put into? So how did that look after that happened to you?
So basically what happened is, so my family doctor, gave my mom a bunch of resources about audiologist. The first thing was we went to audiologist downtown by my grandma's work. We went there, check out my hearing even more, deeper hearing testing. And it was so annoying because I was like, why did all these things in my ears? Like, what? Like, I'm like, no. I remember one time I first went and I threw the thing out of my ear. I put the thing out of my ear. I'm like, I don't want this thing in my ear. Like, I was so fussy.
Oh,
Mom was like, oh my God, just put the damn thing in your ears. It was so funny. I was such a fussy baby. I guess because I didn't even know what's going on. So what is happening to me? So I was so young. Thank goodness for the audiologist being so patient with me, and he gave me a lollipop so I can like calm down. And
oh.
yeah, it was really sweet. So we went to the audiologist, did more testing. I had to keep going there for like 2 days straight, to be honest, just to keep tracking on my ears. And then we looked at my hearing aids, what type of hearing aids that could right fit for my ears. And because every ear side is different, and they kept touching my ears for 2 days. I did not like that. And I was like, take this thing out. I tried a lot of different hearing aids to see which one would lighten my ears. I guess we did paperwork and we found out hearing aids was expensive. And my family was like, whoa, like, right? The bills were expensive. My mom's a young mom, and she's like, how the heck are we going to afford this? Thank goodness my grandma, she's a nurse. So she's able to try to figure out some benefits and insurance and all that. We were able to get it. It's very shocking for me. And to find, got my hearing aid probably like 4 days after, 3 days after, because they have to order it and make sure it's the right fit, all that. So you have to keep going back and forth. And then finally I got my hearing aid. I was super lost because the hearing and the voice that I was hearing was so different versus what I was normally hearing. Like my mom's voice was so different. I literally
Really?
looked at my mom like, that's your voice? I had to relearn a lot of things. And from then, when I put my hearing aid, I had to do speech therapist because my speech would be different from when I was not deaf versus when I was deaf. So I had to do a lot of appointments, different doctor's appointments, because I had to go to speech therapist, doctor appointment, audiologist appointment. It was just a lot.
That is a lot, especially for someone at such a young age. So, how long were you in speech therapy for?
As soon as I became deaf until I was grade 8.
Oh, okay. So, for a while. And how old are you now?
I'm 24 now.
Okay. So, about 20 years being deaf.
Yeah.
Throughout your life, did you have to change hearing aids? Did you learn any like sign language or anything like that?
Over the 3 years, so every three, I think 4 or 3 years. It depends on the person, but for me, every 3 years, I go do a new hearing testing to see if I need to change hearing aid or if my hearing drops. So for me, every 3 years, I change my hearing aid. That's because my hearings are different every 3 years, especially when you get older, your hearing kind of not drop, but kind of be different at times. Especially hearing aids, they can change your hearing volume sometimes too.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. And growing up, did you pick up anything like reading lips or did you learn any sign language at all?
So I went to two schools actually when I grew up. So I went to a deaf school and a hearing school. So in the morning, I was in the deaf school. I would learn a lot of sign language. I was comfortable with my own skin and my own community. And then when I went to the hearing school, it was just doctor. I did not like it. It was just really tough to fit into community, have two different personality, I would say. And it's kind of weird in a way. However, reading lips came naturally to me actually. I didn't realize I was being left until I was taking grade 2. I remember like a teacher was trying to talk to me and I couldn't hear him until like he faced me. And then I went to my mom for something and I said, hey mom, I can't hear my teacher until like she turned around. Like, why is that? Right. And so and my mom's like, that's a really good question. So we went to my audiologist and then we went to him and he said, oh, that's natural if you like that. You don't realize you're lip reading until after. So which was kind of cool. However, I stopped doing sign language, unfortunately, when I went to the hand school full time in grade 2 or grade 1.
Growing up, did you feel differently than your peers?
Definitely. The hand school, yeah, I would bully a lot. Kids would always pick up what is in your ears, what is in your ears. I would always hide my hair in it all the time. I felt like when I talked, because again, I was in speech therapy, so certain words would come out different. So some kids would make fun of me the way I talk. So it was very challenging at times. I had my best friends to this day, they're still my best friend. They always stand up for me, always make fun of the bully. And they were like, Kellina, you have to bully back. Like, I'm like, no, like, and I was such a shy person because I was just like, no, like, that's not who I am. Eventually, over time, I built my confidence and I bullied them back in grade 5. It was definitely very challenging in the beginning when I started the hand school because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have anybody that looked like me in the hand school. So that would make it more difficult and more challenge for me.
Okay, gotcha. So you experienced some bullying. Did you face any other discrimination because of your deafness?
Of course, 100%. I noticed that I would put in, I think it was grade 1, I would put in a special need room and I didn't need to be there. And they just kind of just pushed me in there, knowing that I was not supposed to be there. I remember my principal never told my mom that until I came home one day and I told her like, hey, I was in a room with full of like special needs kids and I don't think I'm the right fit for them. Like I don't understand why am I in there. And I felt like they just over discriminate me too many times in that school. And even when I talked to the principal about the bullying, they just say, oh, they're just kids. She'll be fine. So I'm like, what? Just because I'm deaf, like, doesn't mean that you should push me underneath the bus.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So, as for growing up with these different bullyings and discrimination, did you feel any sort of impact to your mental health?
Definitely, 100%. I felt like it did affect me in a way where I started doubting myself because I would push around a lot, especially a principal you thought you could rely on. So I would thought like I would not better than anybody else around me. And then when I go home, like I have all these community support in my family and neighborhood that all push me to the better. And it's just like I'm hearing two different things in my ears, and I'm like, what's going? Like, where do I like? I was so like, I don't know, and it did affect my mental health a lot while I was growing up because I never really had the confidence in myself.
Okay. And do you think that is something that is unique to people within the deaf community or hard of hearing community? Do you think that they kind of face unique issues with mental health?
Definitely, 100%. A lot of us talk about it. That's unfortunate, and I feel like now people are starting to slowly open up about the mental health. But I would say back then, no, like no one would talk about mental health. I feel like people would just brush it underneath the bath. And it's very, very common a lot of time in the deaf and hard of hearing community because we get so nauseous and anxiety of being around him people because we are bullied in the past. So a lot of time we're just like, okay, well, there's not enough education on the deaf community. Now a lot of people are educated about us. So that's why a lot of us get anxiety while being in the hearing community.
Oh, that's completely understandable. So, as for that education, what do you think we as a society or in these public schools can do for the deaf community to make things better, to make things easier, to make things more accessible?
I would just say that the school should offer a disability course. Even just like something to offer, or even learning ASL, or something the basic. It doesn't have to be such a big course. I feel like that should be the main like important thing because nowadays I feel like people are slowly like starting to develop different disabilities, and not a lot of people are educated on it. So definitely the society can change by that by offering a bunch of courses in disability or even like learning new language like ASL.
Yeah, absolutely. I really love that idea. I think that's a fantastic idea. And there's just so much ignorance when it comes to different disabilities. So I know that you said in the beginning people would say, "What? Kalina, you're deaf?" Like, so what do you say to those people that say, "Oh, you don't look deaf. You don't seem disabled?" Because you hear those comments a lot, right? I mean, I hear them,
Yeah,
you
all the
know.
time, all the time. And I'm like, oh, like the deaf people have a look. I don't know.
Exactly, exactly. So what do you say to those kind of comments? And I hear that comment all the time. You don't seem disabled. What does that mean?
Honestly, that's what I said. I just like, okay, I never knew we have an image look. Like it's just
Yeah.
kind of sad that people have to go through that, especially like I know like a friend of mine, like I remember like she's deaf too, and I'm deaf, but she's fine. And I remember someone came up to her one time at her show, and I was just like, "You are so rude." And then I guess because my hair was down, and like her hair in a ponytail, you can tell she does because she does sign language too when she talks, and it's cute. And then the person came like, "Oh, you're both deaf? You guys don't look deaf." And that's about to mean. And it's really heartbroken.
How does that affect you when people say things like that or you face that discrimination? I mean, how does that affect you emotionally?
I felt like people overlook that just because they think that we have a specific look. So a lot of time, especially myself, sometimes back then I never really told people I was deaf. Like the way that how confident I am right now, I'd be like, yeah, I'm deaf by the way. Like even just now in class, my teacher put closed caption on it, and then I think some kids like, oh, why do you have the closed caption on? And then I actually stood up and said, I am deaf, and they're like, oh.
So is that something that as a teenager or in elementary school that you felt you wanted to hide that part of yourself?
I mean, I was saying the only time I was actually comfortable was when I was in the Dutch school, but not so much in the hand community until until I got into university, because I felt like university was more educated more on the disability than elementary school, middle school, and high school.
Gotcha. When I was in college, in a community college to get my associates, my roommate was blind. They had a specific floor, I guess, for blind people, I guess, because there was like two other people that were blind and they were friends, but some of them had partial sight. But I remember there were some issues on the campus. The path that she walked every day from her dorm to class, they put up a sign and my roommate slammed into it one day and she had a really good sense of humor, but she could have gotten really hurt. So just different issues like that, like they didn't notify her that they put up a sign in the middle of the walkway. So remember she could have gotten injured, but she told it to us as if it was a funny story. But we were horrified. We couldn't believe that our campus did something like that. But just little things like that to try to take into consideration.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my goodness. I'm glad she didn't get hurt. Oh my God.
I know, because it was on a sidewalk. It was the sidewalk, it was the path to class. So on the side was the cars, it was a busy area to the parking lot. So definitely could have gone the wrong way, but thankfully she was okay. Just things like that that a lot of differently abled people have to deal with it in their particular situations.
Definitely, definitely. We always have to carry the most baggage, and a lot of people don't realize enough is enough. Like, we go through so much more than you don't even know that we don't even talk about.
Well, I'm so glad that you are a public speaker and you have your YouTube channel and you come on podcasts and you try to advocate for the deaf community. I think that's so important because I think you're right with education and people being more knowledgeable, things will get better. So I know you mentioned that you're writing a book. Is it about being deaf or mental health? Can you tell us about your book?
So it's literally about me. So it's gonna be about different things. Mental health is one of them, just because I'm a mental health coach. So it's gonna be mixed with poetry and biography. So it's gonna be a little cute mini book. It's about me being deaf in the hearing community, so that the hearing community can get a perspective of what it's like to be deaf in the hearing community.
I love that. I love that. And when is it coming out?
I'm trying to get it out by May 1st because last year COVID happened. So I thought things would be opening again in Canada, but in Canada, everything was closed, unfortunately. Certain things would open, certain things would close again. It was just ridiculous. I'm hoping by May 1st.
Okay, absolutely. Oh, that's great. I can't wait to read it. So definitely keep me posted on that. What inspired you to go into mental health and become an advocate and help people with their mental health?
So it all started when a little boy came to me at my work. I used to work at a big park called Canada Wonderland. I was on break, my hair was in a ponytail. A little boy came to me and said, like, hey miss, look, I have a hearing aid too. And I'm like, oh my God, no way. We had a little talk and then I'm like, are you lost by the way before I get in trouble? And so he's like, no. And then his mom came and his mom was like, oh my God, wait, you're deaf too? And I said, yeah. And she's like, you're literally the first person that my son's seen in the hearing community. And I'm like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, like I don't see any deaf person or, like she obviously sees different disability, but not her son's specific needs. And she was just like, since you did something like that, you are going to make a change in the world just by having your hair up in a ponytail. And she was just like, you're going to make a difference. I'm like, oh, thank you. And then since that little boy, I just kicked it off and I knew it was time for me to start advocating, getting my deaf community together and teaching them how to be advocate for themselves in the hearing community. So that's one reason. My number reason two is because when I was growing up, I never met a professional in a medical field that is deaf. I see that all the time when I was growing up, especially my speech therapist, my hearing teacher, my deaf teacher. It just sad that like there's no deaf person in anywhere. I feel like it's very weird to find them. And I felt like it's time for me to kind of step up for my community and be the first person and bring everybody along with me to the top. So that's why I'm doing this.
Oh, I love that. That's so amazing. I love that story about the little boy. What a special moment. I love that. When seeking mental health services, is it difficult for people in the deaf community to find a deaf therapist or a therapist that knows sign language?
Yeah, it's very hard, especially for those who are not hearing but rely heavy on lip reading and sign language. It's so hard for them. And if you notice, if you go online and you said, oh, like deaf therapist, you're not going to find anybody. And so it's unfortunate that there's no one. There's actually no one. And I know a lot of people who, not just for the deaf community, but also the disability community, want someone who been in their shoes before. They don't want to talk to someone that just trained and to train and go to school because it happened to me before. I went to one counselor when I got older, and I really wanted some little support, just a little talk. That person had no idea what I was going through, and then she was just trying to say, "Yeah, da da da," but I felt like it was just training, and like education. I didn't like that, so I was just like, I didn't want you anymore. And then that's when I wanted to become a mental health coach for the deaf community and disability community.
I mean, that's a huge gap for people that are deaf because that's a whole community that is not able to receive mental health services. I mean, that's a huge problem.
It is a huge problem. I feel like a lot of them now are slowly becoming audiologists instead of a therapist. It's just kind of like, I'm like, come on, guys, come on the mental health field too.
Right. I think that's so, so important. And so you mentioned before, I want to go back to it. You mentioned one of your goals is to help the deaf community, people within the deaf community to advocate for themselves. Can you give us some examples of how someone who is deaf can advocate for themselves?
Definitely. I would just say always find your resources in your community because that is the number way you will learn about yourself and how you can advocate for yourself. And for me, second thing is always join a lot of Facebook group. I tell people there's a lot of Facebook groups you can go to. There's obviously something in your resources that you can do. Also, too, I tell people, don't be afraid to get yourself out there, especially the deaf community. We are scared to get out there. We're very afraid, but I would encourage them to get out there. And even if you need help, don't be afraid to ask for help. I know a lot of us are really scared to ask because we don't want people to overlook that. And I don't want people to be like, oh, she can't do anything because she can't hear. And hearing is very important. Like you hear like more than 24/7, right?
You could correct me if I'm wrong or share your experience, but do you feel that because someone has this disability of being deaf, that maybe they don't want to ask for help to seem like they're capable and can handle everything? I mean, that's kind of like a mindset confidence thing, right? That maybe some people would feel they need to prove themselves even more.
100%. 100%. It's more of the mindset, the confidence. It really is. I was like that too. I felt like I couldn't do anything on my own. But then until I realized that you have to be okay to ask for help. And I feel like that's the one thing that we, the community, need to be aware of, that it's okay to ask for help. Then, but don't put the pressure on you because you already are going through so much.
I think that's something that everyone experiences, that pride that people, I think in general, have a really hard time asking for help. So being deaf on top of that, I would imagine that's just a huge mindset shift for sure, but so important to be open and vulnerable and, to make those connections too, I think is helpful, but that's really hard.
It is hard. It really is. Like I can't remember the last time I actually do not want to ask for help. Like I hate asking for help. I tell you that. I really do. But then I'm like, I don't want to suffer no more. And you don't want to keep making the same mistake. So
Yeah, exactly. And you bring up such a good point that you don't need to suffer. There is help out there. And there's times obviously when someone asks for help, they get that rejection and that makes it hard too. But the more you ask for help, the more successful you will be. So,
exactly.
what do you think we can do to make a difference within the deaf community, especially with their mental health?
Whew, that's a really good question. We should honestly just keep open minded, be very educational on the deaf community in terms of, following a deaf creator or following a deaf YouTuber, kind of see what it's like to live in the deaf community or even support a deaf person business. Or if you guys come across someone that is deaf and they have a business, go ahead support. Especially in the mental health field, you will not see a lot of us talking about mental health because we felt like we don't need the help just because there's not a lot of deaf therapist or a professional there.
What is it that you think everyone needs to know about the deaf community?
Okay, there's so many things that everybody needs to know. The first thing is not every deaf person you meet is going to sign. I feel like a lot of people kind of assume that every deaf person signs, but not the case. If you really want to know about the deaf community, speak to someone that is deaf. And don't just talk to someone because they are friends with a friend. It doesn't work that way because you will not know. Number three, I would say is always face the deaf person. I feel like a lot of time people forget that. Always face the deaf person. And number four, we deaf people are not always outside due to COVID, but because of the masks, we deaf people can't rely on the masks to hear you. The reason for that is because we're a heavy lip reader. We need to consistently be looking at your lip, facing you all the time. And that's what I need you guys to know.
Oh, that's a really, really great point. So COVID must have been really hard on the deaf community then.
100%. It was really hard, especially when technology kicked off and then it was not acceptable for the deaf community. It was even more challenging that we had to face during COVID.
Oh, yeah. That's again something that hearing people should be aware of and something that maybe we take for granted. Yeah. Oh, I love that though. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important for people to hear. So, as for those that are deaf, what words of wisdom or tips do you have for people within the deaf community?
I always tell all my deaf community, especially my community, my supporters on Instagram, I always tell them, don't carry the baggage all the time. Like don't feel like you cannot be heard. A lot of our deaf community feel like we're left out because of what X and Y and D. But I always tell them like, hey, like you won't know until you show up. And always show up for yourself, not just for other people. And I feel like a lot of time because of our past, we can lose our confidence. But I tell them you cannot allow that one person from your past or your present to affect your future. Your future is bright and big no matter what it is, but you do have a long life to live. Knock on wood, and this has always been my quote, knock on wood, you never know what tomorrow brings you. You could go home to God. You can get into a car accident. You can, like, anything can happen to you tomorrow. Always live your life like there's no tomorrow, honestly.
Oh, Kellina, thank you so much. This has been so amazing. I so appreciate you sharing your experience and educating us on the deaf community. Thank you so much. I appreciate it so, so much. Can you tell everyone where they can find you?
Definitely. So you guys can find me on my website, so KellinaEmpowerment.com, Instagram, Chef Queen Boss. That's all you can find me.
Awesome. Everyone, I'm going to have all the links in the show notes. And Kellina, please keep me up to date on when your book comes out.
Definitely, I definitely will.
Kellina, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience as a deaf person and educating the hearing community. I think the work you do is so, so very important. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences. Everyone, go check out Kellina. Like I said, all the links are in the show notes, and when her book comes out, you should definitely check that out. I would really appreciate it if you went into iTunes and you reviewed my podcast. It would be really helpful in getting my podcast to grow. Also, share this episode with a friend or family or share it on social media and be sure to tag me. Thanks so much, and I will talk to you soon with another amazing guest.